I came to Italy to study architecture 40 years ago, and still I'm here. I don't know why and for how long time, but still I live here in my office. I studied architecture. And I have the fortune to be near to a group that maybe you hear, groups, a movement. Maybe you heard about it. I know that you're going to meet some of those personalities in Milan. I'm speaking about the radicals. We use the English expression for radicali, because in Italy there was a very important in that period political party, so we wanted somehow to show, to have another title for this group, so we used the English name radicals. Those groups, the Italian ones, were mainly situated in Florence. They began from Florence, and we speak about Superstudios Archigram. You're going to visit Andrea Branzi, and he is one of the most important exponents of Archizoom. I was near to the Superstudio group. I don't know if you know it, if you heard about it, but it's a very, very important moment in the design. In general, in Italy, especially, led directly to the very famous exhibition in the MoMA, New Italian Domestic Landscape of 1792. In which the first time it was a kind of officially presentation of the phenomenon of the Italian design. And most of the groups were from Florence, and most of the groups were connected to that movement. So I am a little bit younger, much younger, but I was still working with them, and I met them, and they had, I think, a very big influence. These groups created or brought it was a period in which tradition were left aside, and the young generation tried very strongly to think about everything that was done after the Second World War. You know, after the Second World War, there was a very big enthusiasm. They were constructing a lot, they are doing a lot of object products. Economy went very strong, and the young generation of the 68 began to doubt about the consequence of that flourishing, that no one understood where it will guide us. Maybe today they understand much more than they understood, but some feeling they had. You know that in '68, with the young, with the youth demonstration, the Triennale, we will go to the Triennale. The Triennale is one of the sanctum sanctorum of the design. There is a museum of design, but it is an exposition center which art and design really lived together, and architecture lived together for many, many years. There is a very important fontaine of the Chirico outside the garden of the Triennale that was recently restored, but the building itself is a very important monument. So you will be able to capture a little bit of the atmosphere around the Triennale. In '68 there was a Triennale that never opened because the students closed the obliged Triennale. It means an exhibition that takes place every third year. Triennale, you know, maybe the more famous, rather, the Biennale of Venezia that tomorrow opens. You know what they exchange. 1 year is architecture and 1 year is art. This year we are on the art part. So in '68 they closed the Biennale. They damaged very strongly also the building, the students, and it was closed for 15 years. When I was graduating, exactly in that period, they decided to reopen it after 15 years. And when they opened it, they did a competition, and you spoke about Dal Cucchiaio da Città. This was the name of the exhibition, because they tried to do a thought about what happened before 68. And this is a famous phrase of Rogers, that was the director of Casadega, and was teaching was the head of the Faculty of Architecture, where I teach, because I'm teaching also at the Politecnico of Milan. So they did a competition, and with my degree work, I won it. And for me, it was a very enthusiastic moment, because I remember the first time I was in Milan, in the Triennale in 61, and there was an exhibition of a very famous American architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. It was a mythical exhibition. So for me, it was kind of closing the circle. I was a child, I was there with my father. He showed me this place, and then suddenly I entered inside. I entered there to this place, and then I was invited for almost every Triennale to do something. And I thought about beginning my story about an object that I did for the Triennale, not that I won the competition. The 3 years later, it was the 85, I think. I was asked to do a chair for the Triennale, to design a chair. And I was not really doing design before. So it was for me a kind of intellectual exercise. It was not to do a product, but to do something that should be a symbol of a moment. And for me, as a young, because I had a little bit more than you, but I was very young. So to do this chair was very, very important, and I decided to create a combination between two things that don't belong one to another. Always I have in mind a phrase of the American lessons of Italo Calvino. I hope you know the Italo Calvino. So I suggest you, because there were 12 lessons. That it's a small booklet. It exists also in English, also in Italian. I think it was translated to many languages, because are fundamental lessons about what are his thoughts about creativity in general, but especially his creativity. In this book, in these lessons, one of the lessons he speaks about velocity, about many concepts that are connected of the idea of doing project. And one of his ideas is that creativity is not inventing something always new. It's not the problem, it's not that is the issue. The issue is to have to be involved culturally, to take things, different things that they don't have anything in common, and to bring them together and to create something new, because you put those different things to have a new identity. So, and this, I think it's, if you think about, read the book, because it's really worth reading his thoughts. It's a very nice, it's also very short. So maybe this chair is a good example, because it connects two periods, completely different ones. One is the neoclassical movement that tried to do a revival of a historical design, like the Egyptian. You are here very near to one of the biggest European Egyptian museum. It's the collection of Florence, because the biggest one in Europe. The second one in Europe, no, the first one of Torino, but in Florence we have the second one in Italy. And you can see a lot of furniture from the Egyptian period. Then in the 1700s, the classical period used very much of the forms, of the ideas of the ancient period, and they reused it in a modern, for them, form. And And I like it very much because they are really working with symbols, with archetypes. So it was very, very interesting for me. So I took the neoclassical black parts are the neoclassical ones. And the metal one is the rational behavior. If you think about, you know, everyone I think knows the big architects in the state are doing also a lot of design, the five, Richard Meyer, and Michael Graves, and so on. Those guys, when they are young, they won the competition and they came to the Prix de Rome, they came to Italy. In that period, the Communist Party was dominating the scene in Italy, the cultural scene. So no one wanted to see and to speak about the fashion period styles. But we had here Terrani, Santeria, that were very, very interesting. They did some magnificent architectural work, also design, very important design works. But somehow they were neglected and hidden by the schools of design and architecture. The Americans who came, the young Americans, discovered those styles and they found it very interesting as a modern expression. And since they opened this style towards my generation, because before no one spoke about it. So it's a kind of putting together two things that doesn't belong one to another and creating new things. There is a dependence that is not only formal, but also conceptual. So the Triennale liked the chair, and they called Zanotta, was one of the biggest design, and they asked him if he can do the chair. For the Triennale, they had to do 50 chairs, something like that. So I went to Zanotta, we met, and we decided to do the prototype, and when I came to